Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today we're talking about dating as a member of the LGBTQIA community and how it is different from dating in a cis-het relationship. With some of these videos, it can get really easy to get down on how much harder things can be within the queer community because of the heteronormativity of the world. So we're gonna do 5 things that, yes, are specifically different and probably significantly harder when dating in the queer community. And then we're gonna do 5 things that are better about dating within the queer community. Y'all, dating is hard. Whether you're in a straight relationship, whether you're in a queer relationship, no matter what kind of relationship you're in, dating is hard. But there are some specific things that are harder for the queer community when it comes to having and keeping relationships, and also when it comes to starting them. Ask 7 straight people and they will tell you that picking someone up in a bar is difficult, right? That it's hard to know who to go up to and how do you approach it without being too creepy or too desperate or too whatever the world is telling you that it is for you to want to make connection with someone else. Doing it queer is hard in a whole different type of way. If you are out somewhere and you see someone who catches your eye and you are a queer person, if you don't know them, there is the very real possibility, unless you're in a gay bar, statistically, the probability is high that they are straight. So as a queer person, if you approach someone and you start talking to them, sometimes the question comes up like, do they really like me or are we just friends, right? And I hear that a lot, but more so than that is the fear of rejection. And again, yes, in straight relationship, fear of rejection is real, but in a queer relationship or a queer approach, it could be detrimental to you. It could put you in danger, either emotional or physical, depending on who they are and how they respond to you approaching. So it's real easy to get in your head and to decide, I'm not going to go ahead and like move forward and try with this because there's too many other variables that are in here. The number one thing that is significantly different in queer dating is danger. There's a very real danger that someone is going to be highly offended by you approaching them, and their response can seriously hurt you physically or emotionally. There's an inherent danger in being vulnerable with people anyway, right? The idea of showing your cards before you know where someone else is potentially physically and emotionally dangerous in a way that being vulnerable isn't for straight people. And that's just approaching people. There's danger in using apps because there are people out there who deliberately use queer specific dating apps to victimize people. Meeting a stranger that you meet on the internet is actually more physically dangerous for people in the LGBTQIA community, especially for people who are trans. When you know that the potential is so high for you to be victimized, it makes it really hard to put yourself out there in an authentic way. And honestly, sometimes it makes it not a good idea. And that's just meeting and introducing yourself to someone. When you are dating in a queer relationship, especially if it's not a relationship that's straight presenting, I don't like that phrase. Your physical interaction, holding hands, giving each other a kiss. I'm not even talking about anything over the top. I'm talking about normal, typical couples sit next to each other and brush arms together or have their legs touching or holding hands. Those things, depending on where you are, could also be dangerous because you run the risk of other people around you feeling like
that's not appropriate
or they don't want it
shoved down their throats
and take it upon themselves to confront the situation. That's also danger. So number 2 is access. Access to other people. I covered it a little bit when we're talking about dating sites and how they can be pretty dangerous. There are very few queer spaces for people to meet one another. Specifically since the pandemic, unless you are in an area that has a high level of active and interactive queer people, there's not a lot of money to be had for businesses to open completely queer spaces. So it really needs to be a nonprofit or somebody who has a passion for the community or someone who's in the community and has, I don't know, some money to spare, because you're not going to draw the numbers in areas that don't have a lot of traffic from the queer community. Being on a dating app is problematic because if you're not completely out to everybody and you're on a dating app, you have to put the information out there on who you want to date. And you don't know who's going to have access to that information then. Number 3, another thing that makes dating while queer very difficult is the matchmaking by cishet friends. I have no doubt that your cishet friends are lovely people. I also have no doubt that if you are single and actively looking, that your cishet friends, especially the ones who are in relationships, are really eager to introduce you to this one other gay person that they know at their job. Many people in the cishet community have this desire to be involved in the matchmaking, but a lot of times it's just because there are similar or compatible labels. Just because your labels are compatible does not mean you are compatible as people. And also, if it doesn't work out, you have that super awkward other layer of where your friend who did the matchmaking thinks you should be thankful because they're, I don't know, providing you with these opportunities for relationships. And you feel weird about this other person who's in your friend's life in some capacity that you didn't hit it off with. That's awkward. That issue does not exist the same way in the straight world. Number 4, we all have different levels of how out we are. You are completely out. Everybody you know knows. If you meet someone in your community that lives near you and you hit it off and they're not completely out, it'll impact your interaction because where you can go, what you can do while you're out, how together you can really be. The level of out that someone is impacts their partner. In no way am I saying that it is required to date someone who is the same level of out as you, or that everybody should rush to get to completely out if that's not their process. I'm not saying that. I am saying that being at different levels will impact your relationship. It's just another layer of things that you don't have to think about in cishet relationships that you have to think about in queer ones. When we talk about different comfort levels of being out, what do you post on social media? Do you post that you're going on a date because then other people might see it and this person might find out? Do you have the conversation before you go on a date with someone? Hey, I'm not out, don't post anything yet. That feels a little weird to put out there initially when you're just getting to know someone. Once you get into a relationship, when do you post your relationship status? When do you post your first picture together? Who do you need to hide that from? Are you ever allowed to take pictures together? There's so many aspects to how does this work? And it's different for every single person, which makes it, real difficult to navigate. Number 5, similar but not the same. What are each of your levels of deconstructing heteronormativity and especially heteronormative roles in relationships? All of us who have grown up in a heteronormative society have certain expectations about dating, about roles. And on some level, there is a societal expectation that more often than not, the man is the pursuer, the woman is the one who gets to decide whether or not this happens. If she says no, he tries harder. There are roles in the dance of getting to know each other. How much do you tell in the beginning? Do you say I love you first? Who initiates the call after the first date? How long do you wait before you start texting? All of those things are real considerations in any relationship. Intrinsically, in many people, there are expectations that are based on the gender identity of the person. Those don't really hold up well in queer relationships. So then you've got multiple layers, right? If you go on a date with someone, does the person who decided to initiate the date, are they responsible for the follow-up conversation? Does that put the other person in this place of submission and needing to be at the other person's mercy? How do each of them feel about that? The deconstruction of those heteronormative expectations is real and it's difficult. And a lot of us don't realize we need to deconstruct them until they're right there in front of us. So then you've got the stress of trying to date and maneuver who you are as a person and how you present that to others. And then also trying to rid yourself of all these heteronormative expectations that don't fit who you are. Again, not an issue in straight couples, not an issue for straight people typically, but to say this is not an issue for people would be doing a disservice to our community. So there's all the difficult ones. Let's talk about 5 reasons why queer dating is far superior to straight dating. The majority of these are stereotypes. I think it's fair to say that stereotypes apply more to the dating world and when you're getting to know each other than it does to the long-term relationship world, right? By the time you're in a long-term relationship, hopefully you've gotten to know each other and gotten your rhythm, and it's not so much about the expectations of one person's gender identity or the expectations of the world and just about how the two of you work together in your relationship. And yet these stereotypes are pervasive in dating. The first one is this idea that men don't need to try to please their partner, that they're about either getting what they need sexually, physically, emotionally, and getting out, right? This idea creeps into straight dating very frequently. How much effort does he put into how he presents himself at dates? How much effort does he put into the time he spends with you? How much effort does he put into foreplay? The idea and assumption that is out there as a stereotype. Does it reflect how everybody acts? No, it doesn't. But the stereotype persists because many people feel the need to play into it. Number 2, complaints about partners. Straight people, I need you to tell me, why do you date somebody if all you're gonna do is complain about them? The majority of complaining that I hear in my life is straight people complaining about their partner to each other. Not from the queer couples that I know. It's always the straight ones. Now understand, it is very healthy and very normal to want time away from your partner. It's also fine to not, as long as you have other things going on. That's another video. But when the things that I'm seeing are about how much easier it is when your partner's not around, or how much more peaceful things are when they're not home, or saying you need to check in with them before you can do something, but yet saying it in a way that's like, ugh, I have to check in with them. Not like, yeah, let me check and make sure we don't have anything else going on. Do you see the difference? There's a lot of difference in the two. But there's so much complaining about the partner that I feel like some people just sort of dive into that then because that's the norm. 3 is the flip side to something else I said on the first end, and that is that gender roles are the norm. And if you don't fit that gender role, it's hard to navigate your place then. In a queer community, we would all say that we don't completely fit the gender role if you're saying the gender role is also where your attraction lies, right? But the idea that women are passive, men are in charge, the man does the asking out, the man pays, they sound very old-fashioned and not really like that's what happens now, but I am floored regularly at the way this still happens. It is archaic and dysfunctional, and that's not something we have to deal with in the same way in the queer community. Number 4, straight people, why is it a problem for your partner to have different gender friends? So like, guys, why is it a problem for your girl to have guy friends? And girls, why is it a problem for your guy to have girlfriends? That's not the way it works in the queer community, but there's this weird stereotype in the straight community that, you know, you can't have friends of the opposite sex or you can't be with them if your significant other isn't there. Honey, if you can't trust your partner when they're not with you because you believe that they're doing other things, you are number 1, sexualizing those other girls inappropriately. Number 2, in a world of hurt in your relationship, if that's something you can't trust. And the last one, a bit more serious, is the idea of consent. Many times in queer relationships, consent is in the forefront. A lot of that is because you don't know where the other person is experience-wise, comfort level wise. When you go into any kind of physical intimacy, there's so much going on in us that you do need to have those conversations and you need to ask for consent. And those things are good. Like, that's great. In the straight community, the idea of consent is rarely talked about. It's almost like if you decide to go on a date with this person, then you're consenting to whatever they want. That's as far as the consent conversation ever goes. But that's not true. You can change your mind at any time. At any time. There should be no such thing in the dating world as implied consent. Everything should be expressly consented to. Whether you're dating queer or dating straight, it is hard out there to date. And most advice needs to be on an individual basis, but recognizing the things that are hard and recognizing the benefits that do come from doing some of these things that are hard can help you to make it make sense and can help you to decide how you want to conduct yourself. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next week, and until then, take care of yourselves and each other.